From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Each year, an estimated 106 million people get infected with gonorrhea. This sexually transmitted disease is getting harder and harder to treat. The World Health Organization says gonorrhea is increasingly resistant to antibiotics. The WHO warns that there are few treatment options available. The world, it says, is running out of ways to cure the disease. Manjula Lusty Narasimhan is a scientist in the Department of Sexually Transmitted Diseases at the WHO. She says infected men and women of reproductive age could become infertile if gonorrhea becomes untreatable. This bacterial disease can also threaten the health of infected pregnant women and their unborn children. Gonorrhea is one of 4 major sexually transmitted diseases that can be cured. The other 3 are chlamydial infection, syphilis, and chancroid. But the organism that causes gonorrhea has developed resistance to almost every class of antibiotic. Resistance is caused by the overuse and misuse of antibiotics and by the use of poor quality antibiotics. It also results from natural genetic changes or mutations within the organisms that cause diseases. The WHO says it does not have enough information to know the extent of gonorrhea resistance worldwide. But it says cases of resistance to treatment have been reported in Australia, France, Japan, Norway, Sweden, and Britain. The WHO is calling for smarter use of antibiotics and more research into new ways to treat the infections. Dr. Lusty Narasimhan says there is currently no research into new drug treatments for gonorrhea. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report in Special English. The flow of Congolese refugees into western Uganda is raising concerns not only about food security, but also the risk of the Ebola virus. Eating primates is a Congolese custom, but monkeys, chimpanzees, and other animals can carry the deadly virus. Disease experts are calling attention to the danger. So are environmental groups. That is because chimpanzees are endangered. Lily Ajarova is the director of a chimpanzee refuge in Uganda. She says primates are not a traditional food in Uganda, but they are in Central and Western Africa. She said this is the biggest threat to their survival. Dr. Monday Buswowa is with the African Field Epidemiology Network. He says just handling the meat of infected primates can spread Ebola. Lily Ajarova says she and her team have not yet found chimpanzees being eaten in Uganda, but they have seen other primates being eaten. She points out that in traditional Ugandan culture, primates are protected as totem animals, or animals representing a group. But refugees from the West have brought their eating customs with them. Over the past year, tens of thousands of refugees have entered Uganda fleeing war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Daniel Mola of the United Nations World Food Program says most of these refugees live in organized settlements. But he says cuts in food aid have increased pressure on local communities as refugees buy food from the same markets as Ugandans. That means the meat of primates like chimpanzees could be consumed. Over the past year alone, Uganda has suffered from 3 deadly outbreaks of Ebola. The most recent outbreaks have happened in the West. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
From VOA Learning English, welcome to the Health Report in Special English. The Gavi Alliance is a partnership between public health officials and private industry. The group provides vaccines to developing countries. Recently, the Alliance announced plans for an immunization campaign to protect 180,000 girls from cervical cancer. It has chosen 8 countries to start administering the vaccine for human papillomavirus, or HPV. Most cervical cancers result from HPV. The virus is passed through sex. Seth Berkley is Chief Executive Officer of the Gavi Alliance. He says 1 woman dies every 2 minutes from cervical cancer. That is more women than die in childbirth. Dr. Berkley says an estimated 275,000 women die from this cancer each year, and 85% of the victims are in the developing world. He warns that without intervention, the estimate would reach 430,000 deaths a year by 2030. The HPV vaccine is given to girls between the ages of 9 and 13. It is only effective before someone is infected with the virus. If infection does take place, the virus may cause extremely small changes at the cellular level. A pap smear test or pap test can find those changes, but the test may not be available to women in developing countries. If the infection is not found, the cancer begins to grow and will spread. There are signs like bleeding, and after the cancer spreads, there is pain. The HPV vaccine will be administered as part of school programs in Laos and 7 African countries. The 7 are Ghana, Kenya, Madagascar, Malawi, Niger, Sierra Leone, and Tanzania. Dr. Berkley notes that efforts must be made to reach girls who are not in school. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report in Special English. A new study says people are living longer, but many are living longer in poor health. Researchers found that life expectancy has increased by about 5 years since 1990. On average, men worldwide can expect to live 67 years. Women can expect to live to age 73. The findings appear in a series of articles in The Lancet. Richard Horton is the medical journal's top editor. He says the Global Burden of Disease 2010 study presents good news overall. The research found that far fewer people died of measles, tetanus, respiratory problems, and diarrheal diseases in 2010 than in 1990. Deaths from infections, childbirth-related problems, and malnutrition fell about 17% to 13.2 million. Global efforts have focused on reducing HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. AIDS deaths have dropped, but every year each of these diseases still kills more than 1 million people. Mike Cohen is the head of Global Health Research at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He says infectious diseases are now better controlled. He says people live longer, but that means conditions not caused by infection, like high blood pressure and diabetes, are more common. The study found that non-communicable diseases cause more than half of the global burden of disease in 2010. The two biggest killers are heart disease and stroke. They caused 1/4 of all deaths in 2010. The top causes of disability were physical conditions like arthritis, back problems, and mental and behavioral problems such as depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.